Hey y'all, I'm Jon Dee Graham, and you're watching Time to Connect.
Hey, Jon Dee Graham, man, thanks for taking the time to connect. How are you doing? I got you
Man,
cracked up already.
I know it's a day for laughter. It's a day for laughter. John, how are you?
I'm really good, man. I'm a little busy, a little harried, but life is good, all things considered. You know, we're kind of here at the seems like getting out of the crazy COVID times. I don't think we're completely done, but man, it's a lot better than it was the last 2 years, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think it's really going to facilitate the nuclear winter when it comes on. At least you know, we're really well practiced at staying indoors.
Indeed, indeed. Yeah, man. I'm thinking, if I'm not mistaken, is today your birthday, or it's at least your birthday week? Is that right?
Oh, I'm in my birthday week.
Yeah.
It started Monday, the 28th,
Uh-huh.
February 28th. But who has their birthday on a Monday? So I actually sort of officially kicked it off at my Wednesday night residency last week,
Right.
and as a birthday surprise, my wife and Choppy Waters, who's my confidant and road manager, tour manager, he he and my wife put together a mariachi band,
Oh, no
and
kidding.
they made me stay in the back room until it was time to go on. So 10:34 rolls around, and I come out of the back room, and they're playing Las Mañanitas, which is the Spanish version of Happy Birthday.
Oh,
And
man.
then they did Cielito Lindo, and I was singing along, and the crowd was going nuts, and I was crying. It was a big, corny mess, man, but it was so much fun.
That's beautiful. Are you like me? Do you cry much more at the drop of a hat than you did when you were a younger man?
You know, no, I
No.
I I, uh, I am extremely emotionally labile right now.
Hmm.
Have been for a while.
Hmm.
Um, and when I was younger, I was also, you know, not the drop of a hat, but maybe the toss of a hat,
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but then I grew up in the ranch lands, and that was definitely not cool
Right.
in my family. For a
Right.
man to cry, I mean, it's unspeakable.
Yeah.
Uh, but I don't know. I've been, as a friend of mine used to say, I'm pretty close to the surface emotionally these days.
Well, I think that's a beautiful thing. Hey, we'll call this a little birthday present. I want to read something to you, if I
Okay,
may. I asked our mutual friend Will Johnson if he had anything he wanted me to ask you about in this conversation. And I was hoping he would give me some funny story like the one you told about him when I talked to you about him. Uh, which I don't know. We
Will
might,
is one of the funniest human beings on earth.
yeah, we might ask you to tell that story again here because it's so good. But here's what he sent me, and get ready for this.
All right.
Will said Jon Dee's natural wisdom, humor, spirit, inspiration, and gift for writing have been major forces in my life for decades now. He's one of the lights that inspired me to make an effort to do what I do, to have a go at writing songs. The value of his friendship and the stories and laughs we continue to share are all incalculable things to me. I'm one of the many that remain so grateful that he is in this world and that I get to claim him as a friend.
Well, now I'm crying.
Yeah, man. You know,
Wow.
there's a lot of people who feel that way about you, my friend, and I'm very blessed to have you here talking to me. Thank you so much for taking the time to connect. And there's so many things that I want to ask you about. We probably won't get to all of them, but maybe this will be part one of a two-part series or something. We want to talk about your music. We want to talk about your art, about the Bears, a little bit maybe about the personal life and what's going on with you now. South by Southwest is coming up. Do you what does that mean to you these days?
Yeah, the Festival of Broken Dreams, you mean?
Nice. Nice.
The streets glitter with the broken dreams that have been pounded into the pavement.
Yeah.
Okay. I have played every single one except for one that I missed when I was in Europe.
Wow.
And you know, I was around when those guys came up with the idea for it, you know. And the thing is it used to really, it would stress me out so badly because I used to see the music thing. I'm not going to say the music business because that's just dumb, you know. It's bigger than that and it's smaller than that, you know. But you know, I always felt like I was somehow missing something. And if I had only been at this day party instead of this day party, and you know, and it's like there weren't as many people this year as there were last year at my, and you know, look at that. He's got that room packed and he's just like mouthing tripe while he strums a guitar. What? That actually sounds more mean-spirited than I really am. But
yeah,
my wife in the early days of our marriage was like, why do you do it then if it just makes you so crazy? And that was her word for it, because it was flat out insane. It would make me insane. And I'm like, I might miss something, you know. And then sort of, I don't know, maybe about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe, it just all settled down. And I actually started going out and seeing my friends. Like, I don't go to my high school reunion ever. Like, they still try and get me to come. And I'm like, you don't understand. I did not like high school. And I didn't really like any of you. And if you remember, you pretty much made fun of me as the chubby farm kid, you know. It's like, why would I go back? But I come to see South by as being sort of like my high school reunion, only my real life reunion.
Yeah.
You know, I get to see my friends from Europe. I get to see, I mean, I get to run with John Langford for a day, and that's dangerous. That's a dangerous endeavor, you know. I get to see Roscoe. He comes down from New York, you know. I get to see everybody.
Yeah.
And it became less about the zero-sum competition for attention, you know.
Right.
And it came really clear to me one day when I was walking to a day party down on 6th Street that I was going to play at, and this van, and I wish I could remember where it was from, but it's somewhere in the great Midwest. I want to say Iowa, but I'm not sure. Comes roaring up to the curb, and the doors fly open, and these guys just like look like they'd been beat to hell and back, and you know that they'd driven there overnight. And they're getting out, and they are rock starred up, you know, maybe like 22 years old, 23 years old. And this young, equally young guy who's apparently their manager comes running out of the venue and goes, dudes, you'll never guess. The guy from BMI is going to be here tonight. Oh. And they all went, oh my God, it's all happening. And, you know, BMI is a publishing company.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just saw just the raw hunger and excitement and everything. And I just wanted to go over and hug them.
Yeah.
And go, you know what? It's not going to mean much tonight.
Right.
Try and have a really good time, because it's just a gig.
Yeah.
And and then tell them, and I want you to remember this 10 years from now and tell it to another young musician. You know?
And is that what, if you had the opportunity right now, let's play the game of you get to meet yourself at 21, is that what you would tell yourself?
Oh, Christ, I don't know. I try not to play that game.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get back to that.
Okay.
But, you know, I've been doing it so long that I don't even know how to frame it with words, but I've been doing it so long that essentially, I mean, I'm still 17, you know, up here, I'm still 17, although I just turned 63.
Right.
And I don't know that I would do anything differently because honestly, I really like where I'm at right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'd done anything differently, I mean, I might be more successful because we could definitely use more money around the casita, you know?
Sure.
But I don't know that I would do anything differently, you know? I mean, people I've hurt, you know, I would like to go back and fix those things, but
yeah.
I don't know that I would do it any differently because, man, I've gotten to do some really cool shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
In the True Believers, I mean, that alone, we went on tour with Los Lobos for the Will the Wolf Survive tour, which was a nonstop rolling tour for over a year.
Wow.
At one point, we were in Canada and we were desperately trying to keep up with their bus. And we were crossing the Canadian Rockies and the sun was coming up. And Mike Stewart, who was tour managing us at the time, said, man, let's just stop and get out.
Mm.
We did, and Alejandro and I walked up this little path and the sun's just coming up and there's this little mountain stream and we both got down on our knees and drank out of this mountain stream. And fast forward, I don't know, 20 years, maybe 15 years anyway, I was in Europe playing with Calvin Russell and we were playing tours, which was a medieval walled city, you know. And so we played at the amphitheater, which was up at the top of the mountain. And then we walked back down the mountain and there was this well, artesian well that just sort of spurted out the side of this cliff. And we all went up and drank out of it. And then we walked into the walled city and everyone who was there, it was a tiny town, but everyone who was there had been at the concert and they all started clapping. You know,
wow.
I got to play with John Doe.
Yeah.
You know, I got to be on David Letterman. I got to play with some of the best songwriters on earth. You know, I got to be in a band with Richard Lloyd, which, you know, that'll put some years on you, I guarantee you. But man, what a player, you know? So anyway, long story short,
John Hyatt, Michelle Shock, the list goes on. It's crazy.
It is kind of crazy because, you know, I look back at it all and it seems so unlikely. You know, it seems so unlikely that I've gotten to do the things I've gotten to do, you know. And I started out as just a little optimistic farm boy with a Guild guitar, you know.
Wow. And that seems probably like 20 years ago to you now, and it was actually 40 some years ago.
40 plus.
Yeah.
I started playing, my first paid gig was when I was 13. You know, so 50 years ago, I played my first paying gig, you know.
You ever think about what you would have done if not for music?
Well, here's the weirdest part is that, you know, growing up on the border, and we were, I mean, Quemado Valley, where I grew up.
Eagle Pass area, is that right?
Well, it's in between Eagle Pass and Del Rio. I went to high school in Eagle Pass and would hang out there. But our little piece of land, we lived on a hill out on the border of the Fitzpatrick Ranch, which is a really big ranch. And, you know, I just, I don't know where it came from. I played piano in church when I was 12. I was, because the talent pool in a town of 180 people is pretty shallow, you know?
Sure.
So at 12, I was playing piano in church. And, you know, I remember clear as day telling my older brother, you know what, I want to play music for a living. And he looked at me and was like, that's not a thing for a man to do. I mean, that's not that's a real thing.
Wow.
You know, how did I even know at 12 that that's what I wanted to do? And, you know, I tried to pretend you know, I was a good student, and the high school and I kind of mutually called it quits, because they were like, look, you got fantastic grades, you're passing your exams without even showing up. You don't want to be here. We're not that crazy about you being here. So we're just going to send you off. Here's your diploma. And I came to UT and entered Plan 2, which my brother had been in. And I think I told myself that I wanted to be a writer. You know,
that was about, had to be about 1975, 76?
77.
77, okay.
And, you know, so I was pretending, but, you know, of course, the co-op that I lived in had a band, and I immediately took it over. And I learned a whole lot from those guys.
Now, you said you wanted to be a writer at that time, a songwriter or a writer of fiction?
A writer, literature, literary writer.
Yeah. Who are some of the writers who you've read that made you want to be a writer? Were you you know, American literature guy, the Beats, Hemingway? What kind of stuff were you reading back then?
Well, here's the deal: is my mom was a school teacher, and the ladies in the little town of Quemado valiantly tried to have a library, you know, like, and it was in just this little house, and they couldn't make a go of it for lack of interest, you know. And so they were going to send away all the books, or give them to Goodwill or something. And my mom said, I'll take them. And she took this entire, well, tiny little library, but she took it, boxed it up, and put it in our attic. So I was living under a library. And only rule that she had for me was, if you have to have me explain something to you about the book, you can't read it. And so I'm reading Henry Miller at 13.
Oh, wow.
Going, wow, wait a minute, what? You know?
And not admitting to your mom that you needed some stuff explained to you.
No, because she might take it away.
Yeah. Wow.
So I think, you know, and there's a part of me that still wants to write, and I've written actually quite a bit. I did a book of poetry co-written with Nathan Brown, the poet laureate of Oklahoma, which is a funny thing to say out loud, actually.
Called Don't Try, right?
Yeah. And I published a couple of things in some little fanzines, and part of me still would kind of like to write a book, like an actual book. So, you know, the sort of thing that Will Johnson just goes, I've got a couple of months off, I'm going to write a book, you know?
Yeah, but I think he would tell you that was one of the most difficult things he's done. And
I imagine, but it's like, you know, Nick Cave is putting out a book, and Josh Ritter's putting out a book, and it's just like with actors and musicians, you know, like the actor always wants to be in a band.
Sure.
You know, the musician always wants to be taken seriously as a writer, you know.
Right.
But
Well,
there's a part of me that still would like that, you know. As far as what I was reading that moved me, I was all over the map because I had a library, you know, and I, you know, like, I'll just be right up front with you. My favorite book, period, is Moby Dick. And I read Moby Dick about every 2 years.
Wow.
And I find something new in it every time. Go look up the section where Starbuck is explaining to Ishmael why the moon is more powerful than the sun. It will blow your mind.
Sounds familiar. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Yeah.
And then, you know, the beat thing. I mean, I love Buckowski, and you know, reading Kerouac was kind of like eating a bowl of Count Chocula. You know, it was very snappy and fun. Oh, he's crazy, you know, and it's like really, he wasn't much of a writer. I mean, what's the famous quote from Truman Capote? Said, Kerouac, that's not writing, that's typing.
Typing, yeah.
And also,
I don't know, man, that's kind of sacrilegious, I think, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean,
that's okay.
Like I said, I have opinions. And the, you know, the truth about Kerouac was essentially he was just taking dictation while Neil Cassidy went on and on, you know?
Well, there was more than that. There was the town and the city, and he did some other stuff, I think, of note. But if you're talking about on the road, which most people think about when they think about Kerouac, and certainly is his most famous novel, I guess to some extent it was just taking dictation. But what I would say is just try it. You know, it's one of those things. It looks a lot easier than it is. You know, you read something like that, and you go, "Oh, he was just taking dictation." Yeah, try it. How come other people have not written something that have been that impactful? But yeah, that's cool. But you are a writer, man. You are you. I mean, gosh, do you have any idea how many songs you've written? You're such a storyteller in your songs, in your gigs. Whether we call it a novel or a short story or a song, I definitely think of you as a writer.
You know what? I'm really careful about vainglory, but I consider that to be true, you know, because you can take my lyrics out of the songs and they're still powerful. I mean, just in a different way.
Yes.
But they're still powerful, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, like Cormac McCarthy, geez Louise, you know.
There's a writer.
There's a writer.
Yeah.
You know, first time, I mean, I got started with All the Pretty Horses, and then I worked my way back. And, you know, The Orchard Keeper, unbelievable. And also, man, Blood Meridian is one of the most powerful books. I mean, there's parts of that book that just make me sick to my stomach. And also there's parts of it that just make my soul explode, you know? And I love that. I love his economy of punctuation. I love his economy of words. I love that there's not a single quote mark in any of it, but yet you still know exactly who's talking.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
The man's a genius, you know?
Well, Well, when I interviewed him, he said he listened to a Jon Dee Graham record and said, "Damn it, I wish I could write a song like that." If you had to play one of your, let's just pretend it's Cormac McCarthy, someone you revere like that.
Yeah.
And he said, "Hey man, I hear you're a songwriter. Play me one of your songs." What would you play for him?
I would probably, well, that's a good question. Did you plan that?
I got it from Guy Clark, actually. I'll explain that in a second. But well, let me just explain it now to give you some more time to think about it.
Yeah.
Steve Earle, I think it was Steve Earle, said that Guy used to do that to young songwriters, that he would sort of ignore them as they were vying for his attention, and then he would suddenly turn on them and just look at them, you know, with a piercing stare and say, "Okay, what do you got? Let's hear your best song. Play it for me right now." Wow, talk about pressure. And then he would say, and play me the one cover song
Oh man,
that you would like to play right now. So I wanted to ask you that same question. You know, what if under that pressure situation, or that situation where you did want to impress someone, even at your age, even with all the accomplishments, it's somebody like Cormac or you name it, it's Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan comes to your house and says, "Hey, I want to hear one of your songs. Play me one." What do you play?
I would probably actually play the first track from my very first album. I'd play $100 Bill, because song's only got 28 words in it, you know. And
Talk about economy.
yeah, and as someone said one time in a derogatory spirit, but I love it still. They're like, "Well, he's not afraid of singing the same thing twice."
Yeah. How about a cover? What would you play if he said, "Now play me a cover"?
Volver, volver.
What's that?
Volver, volver. It's a Spanish. It's the Spanish language. It's the Spanish language. Yesterday, it is the single most covered Spanish language song. And
is that on one of your records? Did you?
Oh yeah, that's on
it's on this record. Yes, that's right.
Which, by the way, looks mighty fine.
Thank you. Yeah, I dig it. Jon Dee, one thing I want to ask you about is, and I'm trying to figure out how to circle around this question. I may just not circle around it and come to you straight on. As I've talked to you and read your lyrics, and I had watched that documentary about you, Swept Away, a while back, but I actually watched it again today, knowing I was going to talk to you. And all these, I get all these things that maybe it's just my filter, but things that sound very Buddhist. and so at the risk of maybe asking a too personal question, I wonder, do you consider yourself a philosophical Buddhist? Or, are you just coming to this stuff naturally?
Here's the thing is, and by the way, there's no such thing as a too personal question for me, really.
Okay.
And I'll shoot you straight. There's a path, right? And everyone agrees on it. They just don't agree which path it is, you know? But anybody that has lived as long as we've lived, which is crucial. That's the only advice that my father ever gave me. Was he said, "Dee, you need to pay attention," and that served me well.
Jon Dee, you cut out there you froze for a second. Let me ask you to repeat that, because that was a crucial moment.
Steve, my father only gave me one piece of advice, which was, "Dee, you need to pay attention."
Ah, okay.
And it served me well. And you can't have gotten to this point in our lives if you've been paying attention and not know that there is something at work. I don't know what it is, but this I have a song, something moves beneath the surface, you know, and it's there. You can almost see it, but you can't. And you know, I belong to a Sangha, which is a Vietnamese Vietnamese style Buddhist meditation group.
Okay.
Basically, Sangha means circle of like-minded friends.
Right.
I don't really consider myself a Buddhist, but I find that the practice helps me.
Mm-hmm.
The practice bears fruit, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I also pray, you know, and you know, they say that you know, spirit of going to hell, spirituality is for people who've been to hell. Yeah. You know. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot smarter people and more well-read people than me that have tremendous faith in something besides themselves. And to mock it would be foolish, you know.
Yeah.
And also I see it working in the world around me, you know. Sometimes I find Buddhism to be a little cold and dispassionate, you know. But the more I've studied, you know, I mean, the first noble truth, you know, life is suffering. That's not an accurate translation.
No.
What it actually says is life is unsatisfactory. And that's very different.
Well, you actually made reference to that first scene in that Swept Away documentary. I think you were making reference there. You had a flat tire in a car.
Yes.
And you're putting air in the tire. And I don't know if I just put this together myself, if you were making a reference to the first noble truth, because as I've understood it, what the Buddha was getting at, I think he even used this analogy, that it was an ox cart, not a van, you know, or whatever. Yeah. That one of the wheels is out of round. Life is it's just not quite, and when it is smooth, you know it's going to be a rough ride again here really soon. So yeah, right on.
Absolutely. And you know, if you see the Buddha in the road, kill him.
Yeah.
Well, but say hi first.
Yeah. Man, there's so much I want to talk to you about, and we can go on forever, but let's go on a little longer. And I want to ask you a couple of things for sure. I want to ask you kind of how the Continental Club thing got going. I want to ask you about, and I just lost your video. There you are. You're back. Wanted to ask you about your paintings and just the bear in general and how that came about. And maybe let's start Continental. How did that happen? How did that? Because obviously it's super strong connection.
Yeah, it's you know, time to connect. The Continental Club has been like this touchstone for me for years. Well, literally, I mean, I played there when I was still a teenager. The first time I played the Continental Club was after the Skunks had opened for Joe Ely and the Clash. And we went back to the Continental Club, and at 2 a.m. they locked us in, and mayhem ensued, you know. And I ended up jamming on stage with Joe Strummer, and you know, that's actually the story. That's sort of like my origin story, because when it was daylight and they let us out of the club, I had to go to class. And so
I went?
I did. I got my book, and I'm still high out of my mind. And I'm like walking into this big student studio amphitheater, you know, the big amphitheater classes. And it's just like in a movie, like the sound went, and it was dead silent. And I looked around and I went, oh, I don't belong here. And I immediately walked to the bursar's office and said, I want to withdraw. And they're like, well, would you like to see a counselor? And I'm like, no, I'm ready.
No, I'd like to play with, I'd like to be on stage with Joe Strummer again, but I don't need to see a counselor.
I'm gonna night like that and go back to the school, you know?
Right.
So anyway, the Skunks played there regularly, and then True Believers played there regularly. And then I went out to California, lived in LA for 7 years. You know, sort of a biblical number, you know, 7 years of exile. And then my first marriage is falling apart, and I left with Calvin Russell to do just this endless tour of Europe. And when that all fell apart and the marriage fell apart, and then we had the Northridge quake, and I just went, all right, I'm done. I'm going home, you know? And I came back to Austin and ran into Mike Hardwick, who I'd hung up my guitar. It's like, I'm not going to play anymore. I'm just going to work and support my son, who at that point was 4 years old. It was just him and me living in this little suicide shack on Treadwell. And I ran into Hardwick, and I was framing houses for a living. And if you're living in a house I framed, I'm sorry. You know, terrible, terrible. And so I ran into Hardwick, and he was like, man, are you playing? And I'm like, nah, I'm not playing at all. I'm not doing that. And he said, damn, that's a shame, because I'm on a session this week and we need another guitar player. I mean, it's paying $300 a day. And I'm like, where is it? What time? You know? And so we started playing, and I went to Steve Wertheimer and said, you know, I'd like to play again. I'd like to play here. And so he gave me the deadest night of the week, which was Wednesday night. And now, well, it's 26 years now. If I'm in town and I'm not in the hospital or in jail, I will be found at the Continental Club on Wednesday night. And I go out on the road and I play for 900 people in Chicago, and I play for 4 people in Fort Dodge, and I play for, you know, a school teacher convention in Iowa. And then I go back to the Continental Club, you know, and just being in there changes the way I feel, you know. And perhaps that's not healthy, you know, but in a way, it's a sacred space for me, you know. And I played there last night, and it was, I still feel good from having played last night at the Continental Club. And it's bad in the Buddhist sense to become so attached to a physical location, but you know what? It's a spiritual location for me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's beautiful. Well, let's see, John, one of the questions I want to ask all my guests in this series is, if you can look what I'm pointing at here, is what about Bob? What about Bob? I just want to see, you know, kind of how do you think of Dylan? I'm sort of obsessed with Dylan, and in so many ways, but I'm just curious, how do you think of him? What kind of influence has he had on you? How did you feel about the Nobel? You know, whatever comes to mind. Just talk to me about Bob Dylan.
So did you say that you are like a Stone disciple?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. Undeniably a genius, undeniably. and undeniably voice of his generation, you know. But there's always this sense with me that he's singing down to us, and he's playing games with
no doubt
heads, and frankly, I don't like that. And I'll tell you a quick story.
Yeah.
Okay. So my old friend, T.S. Bruton, rest in peace. He had this cassette tape of this guy that got hold of Bob's home phone number, and he would call him and taunt him.
Oh no.
And he would go, "Best American songwriter, come on." And Bob Dylan would go, "Yeah, well, I love how you would engage with him." And he'd go, "Yeah, well, who's better?" The guy would say, "Paul Simon." He'd, "Oh, give me a break. Come on, man." And this went on for like, and he would name different people, and Dylan would go, that guy, he couldn't even kiss my shoe, you know? And so then one time the guy, he goes, name one man, one songwriter that's better than me. The guy goes, Gordon Lightfoot. And Bob Dylan goes, "Yeah, he's pretty good." So that part of Dylan,
yeah,
I love with all my heart. But the part that kind of, you know, like the part of him that thinks that he's smarter than everyone else, and that really he doesn't have to explain anything, and he doesn't have to, he owes the audience nothing. I owe the audience everything, you know? So there.
yeah.
And sorry if that hurts your feelings, John, because I really like you a lot.
No, it doesn't hurt my feelings one bit, man. I don't like a lot of things about Bob too, but you know, you and I are old enough to have been close enough, even if we weren't completely aware of the profound impact he had on the kind of music that we love. You know, when people like Brian Wilson listened to Dylan, said, "Oh, we can do that." And you know, Steve Earle has a thing that if you do Audible, I think it's an Audible exclusive. You really should listen to it. It's just a kind of a short narrative on something. I think he called it something like the moment in 1965 when rock and roll became art. And it was the moment, he describes it as the moment that Bob Dylan wanted to be John Lennon, and John Lennon wanted to be Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
And Lennon went acoustic and Dylan went electric. But the whole idea of making lyrics literature. I mean, he's not the only one, but it really does start with him in a lot of ways.
And I mean, okay. Please understand that I begrudge him nothing, and I concede his genius readily.
Yeah.
You know, and did he change the face of modern music? Yes, he did. Yeah. Yes, he did. The closest I come to really like being able to let down my guard and love Bob Dylan is Rolling Thunder. Like when I watch that documentary, and he's surrounded by Sam Shepard and Patti Smith and Mick Ronson, who was my guitar hero to end all guitar heroes. Mick Ronson is his fucking guitar player. I got it. When I watched that, I go, oh, he's like a magnet. He's like a magnet that he has like this field around him that changes everyone in the room. And if you're in a stadium with him, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, but that would be the part of Bob that I love, you know, is watching him wipe face, you know, like it's a minstrel show. and he's making a very deliberate point out of it, you know.
Mm-hmm. And so when he watches this video, we can just both say, Bob, there's so many great things about you, but stop being such a dick, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I have one Bob Dylan story. So Jim Keltner played drums on that album that you're wearing. And he talked about how Bob had to have a goat in every band. Like there had to be someone that he would pick on. And that was their role. And he said this one tour, he said he was relentless. He was fucking with Fred Tackett about everything he played. And Fred would start to play a solo and Dylan would walk over to him and go, you know, and Keltner and Tackett were super close, and it was making Fred Tackett like physically ill. And so he did that bullshit to him one night, and Keltner chased down the hallway behind Dylan, who had his own dressing room, of course. And Bob was bending down, taking off his boots. And Keltner said, you know what? That's my friend. That's my friend. And you have disrespected him enough. If you do that to him again one more time, I will kick your ass. I will knock you out. I will hit you in the face. And said Dylan just sort of looked up at him and then looked down and just kept taking his boots off. So Keltner went back to the hotel and he's like, I'll start packing my things because I figure this gig's over. And he said, and in the morning, no mention was made, and the bus call happened, and he got back on the bus, and not a word said about it. And then working with Dylan on record years later, Dylan said, hey, Jimmy, you remember that time you got down on your knees and yelled at me? I didn't like that. So I get the cult of Dylan. I get it. And I also totally get that he's a genius. But, you know, so many of his songs are like, there's a smirk right behind them. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. I hear you, man.
Bob.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we got to wrap this thing up. And I really do hope, Jon Dee, that we can have a part 2. I hope you're open to that. But
I'm absolutely up to that. I mean,
awesome, man.
This is fun.
Absolutely. That's why I'm doing this series, just for I don't know how many people are going to watch these things, but I'm just having a blast talking to people like yourself. And 2 more things before we wrap up here. One, I want to hear about the bear and also your art and now you've got a new book out.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that, if you will, just how that kind of evolved for you.
Well, it's funny because in my mind, I only started drawing the bears like 10 or 15 years ago. And Kathy McCarty was like, well, that's bullshit. I've got a journal from 1981 that you drew a bear in. And I'm like, no. And she actually brought it and showed it to me.
Wow.
And so it's in my subconscious, you know. I mean, the best I can say about like the origin story of the bear or whatever, I'm playing this house concert. And something I like to do sometimes, I was like, all right, questions and answers, you know, who's got a question?
Yeah.
And some guy in the audience goes, why bears? And somebody behind him went, come on, man, look at him.
Yeah. You identify.
Yeah, I feel like a bear. And also there's something irresistible about a creature that is simultaneously adorable and could break your back with one stroke and eat your face.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
It's pretty much the best and the worst that the world has to offer all at once. And honestly, when I started posting the bears online, people started asking to buy them. And next thing I knew, it was like a thing, you know? And I'm kind of embarrassed sometimes that, because I would be painting them, drawing them if no one was even watching. But it's become it's become a joyful thing for me, you know? And, you know, the book that I just put out, which is just overtly a picture book, it's a children's book.
Yeah.
I did one earlier that was a collection of love notes that I'd left from my wife. And largely, a lot of them were just, I'm going to the store for smokes. I'll be back in 10. But then I'd draw a bear. And she was, oh, this is great. You know, and so eventually it turned out I was like doing these elaborate paintings to tell her that I was going to the park to meet my friends, you know? And so that's really all there is to it, is that, you know, I hate to use this phrase, spirit animal, you know, who in this world has gone, my spirit animal is a warthog, you know? It's always
right.
It's always an eagle.
It's a squirrel. It's a rat.
No one's a squirrel.
Yeah.
No one said, my spirit animal is a field mouse, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, I mean.
But whether you like it or not, man, your spirit animal is a bear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have no say in it.
And it makes sense. And I will, when I post this video on YouTube, I'll put the links to your website there where people can see some of your paintings of the bears. And yeah, man, they're charming, and I'm not surprised that there's demand for it. And you know, there's something about it that is so you, Jon Dee. I don't know quite how to explain that, but you hit upon a little kind of iconic thing that does really sync up with how you feel.
It's absolutely true. It's absolutely there you are. Sorry.
You're back.
It's absolutely true.
Man, I hate to wrap this up, but we need to, and I definitely am going to impose upon you to have part 2 at some point, if you will. But as we wrap this one up, I want
series.
Okay, very good, very good. I do want to ask you one more question, and kind of to take us out, which is when you are dead and gone, what do you hope people say about you?
He helped me. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Jon Dee, man, thank you so much for taking the time to connect. I'm a huge fan. I feel very fortunate that you gave me this time, and look forward to hooking up with you down the road again.
Oh, you know, we're going to see each other at Will Johnson's house probably in a matter of weeks.
I really hope to be there, by the way, and if not there, some other time down the road, okay?
All right, I love you.
Love you too, man. Take care. Bye-bye.
Right on.